Welcome to another edition of Ask Isaiah. It's your host Isaiah Rhodes, and right now we're going to recap Day 1 of the 2018 NBA playoffs. Four quality games, I should say, two quality games and two blowouts. But we'll break that down and also give you a preview of Day 2. Now, in Day 1, to start the matchups off, you had Golden State versus San Antonio. San Antonio was completely overwhelmed. They didn't have any star power to combat what Golden State was bringing to the table. Golden State completely dominated, moved the basketball exceptionally well, 32 assists on 44 made field goals. Klay Thompson was shooting out of this world, 11 for 13 from the floor, 5 of 6 from 3. He had 27 points, and then you look at what KD was able to provide offensively with 24 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Draymond Green came with all-around play, 12 points, 8 rebounds, 12 points, 8 assists, and 11 rebounds. And then off of the X Factor side, which the Warriors have a multitude of X Factors, but in this particular matchup, JaVale McGee completely brought energy with 15 points. On San Antonio's side, because they don't have Kawhi Leonard, they don't necessarily have the playmaker necessarily to, or the dynamic player, I should say, to just put fear in Golden State's defense. They struggled offensively all the way around. Their premier player, LaMarcus Aldridge, did not show up for Game 1. He had 14 points, but completely looked just lethargic in his play. He didn't bring intensity, and I thought that San Antonio struggled. Greg Popovich, to his credit, he understands the predicament his team is in, and he's always going to put forth the players necessary to compete. It's just right now they don't have the horses that can really put fear in Golden State. So that matchup looks to be set in stone at this point, but we'll see what happens going into Game 2. You have a couple of days to prepare. Let's see what Greg Popovich has in store. For Game 2, we had a great matchup in the 1-8 series on the East, Toronto Raptors versus the Washington Wizards. Now, Toronto has their own demons that they had to exercise in terms of Game 1s. They struggled over the last 10 Game 1s they have lost. And when you look at what this team had in store for this season, they wanted to get to the top echelon in the Eastern Conference to overcome Cleveland and LeBron James. They were the number 1 seed, 59 wins in the regular season, put them in position to be the number 1 seed. But those Game 1 demons in playoff series really put them under pressure. And Kyle Lowry expressed such sentiments by saying Game 1 in that particular series would be their Game 7. They played like it. They came out and won 114 to 106. Washington put up a great effort with some balanced scoring from Markieff Morris, and John Wall provided great assists, 23 points, 15 assists. Bradley Beal had 19 points on 8 of 17 shooting. But I think for John Wall, his shooting struggles really put Washington in a difficult situation. He shot 6 for 20 from the field. And when you have Kelly Oubre not providing outside scoring, it really put Toronto in the driver's seat with their scoring balance. DeMar DeRozan didn't score well throughout the entire game, but OG Anunoby gave them 12 points. You had Serge Ibaka put a vintage performance together, 23 points, 12 rebounds. CJ Miles gave them 12 points. DeLon Wright gave them 18 points. And then you had the crowd behind Toronto to really push them over the top. I believe the turning point of the game really came when Mike Scott, who put forth a great game, he had 14 points. He was called for a flagrant foul on Kyle Lowry, and that really turned the momentum. I think that flagrant foul should have been just a common foul. I thought Kyle Lowry sold it. To his credit, you got to sell it. But just it didn't help Washington's cause at that point. And I thought that Toronto really smelled blood in the water and really just took it to Washington for a 2-minute stretch and kind of swung the game. So right now, Toronto's up 1-0, but I think that series will be evenly matched based on the just the balanced scoring on both teams, and both teams like to really push the basketball, which in turn leads to a lot of turnovers, and both teams really thrive on turnovers. Washington had 13 turnovers, Toronto had 17, but I just think because of what Toronto was able to do from the outside and really opened up the game offensively. So Toronto's up 1-0. And in the third game last night, you had Philadelphia just completely obliterate Miami. It was a close game in the first half. Miami was up 60-56, but I just thought Ben Simmons really was the ultimate orchestrator. He was the straw that stirred the drink last night, and Philadelphia's shooters were equally able to oblige his ability to set the table. J.J. Redick scored 26 points, 19 in the second half, just completely just unlocking the shooter's realm that great scorers and shooters want to get to in terms of being in the zone. The crowd was amazing. Allen Iverson was there. LaShawn McCoy was there. Danny Swift Garcia was there. Just a lot of Philadelphia luminaries were there. And I thought that considering that they didn't have their best player in Joel Embiid out there, they still continued to maintain the momentum from their 16-game winning streak in the regular season. Adding to that momentum is their first postseason win since 2012, equally add to their first postseason appearance since 2012. So Philadelphia looks to be in the driver's seat. But as I mentioned in my previous preview, Eric Spoelstra is a great playoff coach, and he'll have those guys prepared. And Philadelphia should be equally up for that challenge. Brett Brown has these young players really putting forth a great effort. And as I mentioned with the shooters, man, Marco Bellinelli, 25 points. He had 3 3-pointers. Ilyasova, 17 points, 14 rebounds, 4 3-pointers. I mentioned J.J. Redick. You also had Dario Saric hit 4 3s. So the Philadelphia 76ers were ready for that first challenge. Game 2 will be another test to see can you maintain that momentum and really put your foot on the opposition's neck. For Miami, Kelly Olynyk was really the only bright spot. He had 26 points in 30 minutes. Their big man, Hassan Whiteside, didn't have an impact at all. And when you consider Joel Embiid not being there, that spells problems for Miami, because if he can't really dominate with Joel not being there, what is going to be the case when Joel comes back? He did clear concussion protocol, and he won't be available for Game 2. But sources say that there's a great chance he should play in Game 3. So let's see how that turns out. But Miami will be back for Game 2. So let's see what Philadelphia will be able to bring to the table to really continue that momentum. Now, for Game 4 last night, you saw a tale of two halves, really. I thought the Portland Trailblazers, they came out with solid energy, but they just weren't able to make shots. Damian Lillard really struggled from the floor. Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum. Damian Lillard shot 6 for 23. C.J. McCollum shot 7 of 18. And I thought the New Orleans Pelicans seized that opportunity. Drew Holiday came out with balanced scoring. He had 21.7 assists. Rajon Rondo, to his credit, always is able to set the table. And I thought with Portland missing so many shots early, it allowed New Orleans to get out and run. And with that pace and Drew Holiday and what Rajon Rondo are able to do in terms of 2 point guards really setting up the table, I thought Anthony Davis just thrived. 34 points, 14 rebounds, and some key defensive possessions, really changing shots. He didn't necessarily get the most block shots, but he altered so many shots, and it really put Portland in a position to where they had to shoot on the outside. And what New Orleans was able to do in terms of trapping Damian Lillard, it made it really difficult to get quality shots on a consistent basis. Now in the second half, they were able to really buckle down in certain respects. I thought New Orleans ran out of gas in certain periods, but that's because Anthony Davis was just spent. He impacted both sides of the basketball at a consistent level. So when it came down to the fourth quarter stretch, Portland was able to take advantage of him being fatigued. With that said, they made some questionable decisions down the stretch in terms of shots, and it cost them the game. They struggled in terms of execution. They lost 97-95, but I think that series should be equally up for the task in terms of entertainment value, because I think Damian Lillard will come back and perform at a much higher level. He's a great player, great caliber performances, and I think Anthony Davis, because he understands the significance of this playoff series, he got his first playoff win in his career yesterday, and he mentioned about how, getting that monkey off his back only breeds more confidence for his team. So I think Alvin Gentry should prepare for a much better performance from the Trailblazers, but in the same breath, the Trailblazers have to figure out how to make things more difficult for Anthony Davis, because if he's able to dominate with the ease with which he did yesterday, the series would be over. For day 2, you have 4 matchups. You have the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Boston Celtics. The Bucks have the best player in the series, in Giannis Antetokounmpo, but the Bucks have struggled throughout the entire season to have a sense of consistency. They've had injuries, they've had trades, they have had signings to try to really, balance everything out. They signed Brandon Jennings towards the rest of the season. They got a trade with Eric Bledsoe. Jabari Parker's back. But with that said, they just really struggle to really be consistent offensively. When you look on the other side, you have the Boston Celtics, who've dealt with a myriad of injuries all throughout the season. To Gordon Hayward, 5 minutes into the season, you have Kyrie Irving, who's out for the year with knee issues. And then you have Marcus Smart, who's out for a period of time as well. So you have young players really being led by Al Horford and Brad Stevens, an exceptional coach. I think because of Boston's ability to just move the basketball and stay balanced, despite all those injury issues I mentioned, I think they'll be able to pull out this series. It'll be a tough 6 because, like I said, the Bucks have the best player in the series by far. And I think when you have that, a player of that caliber can always swing games. So Boston will have to figure out how to defend Giannis, but Giannis will have to figure out how can his dominance lend itself to making plays for others. Jabari Parker should take some pressure off of Giannis, but I think with that said, Boston should pull out the series. We'll see how it goes. Game 1 is today. Game 2 and the primetime matchup for this Sunday is Indiana and the Pacers. Indiana and Cleveland. Now, LeBron James is the standard in the Eastern Conference. He hasn't lost a first-round series in his career, and he's won 21 games in a row in the first round. And the last time he lost a first-round matchup was in 2012 against the New York Knicks, and he lost that game by 2. And it took a great performance from Carmelo to win that game. So with that said, Cleveland does have different players. There's been a huge changeover throughout the season with trades, with Isaiah Thomas first coming in, Jared Crowder, but then with all the injuries that came with that, and then more trades to really get athleticism back within the team. Kevin Love has been injured, so trying to work him back into the rotation in the flow has been an issue and a challenge. Ty Lue's dealt with some stress issues. He's trying to work his way back into preparing as a coach and just trying to make a run in the Eastern Conference. But I think because LeBron James understands the level that he has to go to and play off basketball, the preparation that teams have to go into to try to stop him and stop what he brings to the table is very difficult. This is a new stage for Indiana in terms of the changeover that they've had in terms of Paul George being traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Victor Oladipo. Victor Oladipo has answered the challenge and becoming a more featured player. He'll be the most improved player by a landslide. And then you consider what he brings to the table defensively. I think Indiana has a shot to really challenge Cleveland. They'll probably win 1 or 2 games. They won the season series 3-1, but I just find it really difficult to stop LeBron and what he brings to the table at this stage in the playoffs. I think LeBron knows that, and I think when he's really confident and he knows that he can't be beat, the opposition's at his mercy. So Indiana will have some things in store for LeBron, but it won't lend itself to any sustainable victories consistently. In the third game, you have the most evenly contested series of all the playoff series. You have the 4-5 matchup in the West, Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Utah Jazz. Due to a tiebreaker, the Oklahoma City Thunder were able to get the 4 seed because they defeated Utah 3-1 this season. But a lot has changed since that last matchup with Oklahoma City and Utah. Oklahoma City lost Andre Roberson, their best defensive player, and because of that, now it really had to change the defensive dynamics of Oklahoma City. Before that injury, Oklahoma City was top 5 in defensive efficiency. Since then, they've fallen to 15th. To average out the season, they're still in the top 10 in terms of offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. Only one of 4 teams to be in those categories at that ranking. But with that said, Utah, who started the season 19-28, really trying to salvage the season while Rudy Gobert was injured. Donovan Mitchell, who many consider the Rookie of the Year, has really put on a show and really has not played like a rookie. He's the first rookie to lead a team to the playoffs and lead a team in scoring since Carmelo Anthony in 2004 with the Denver Nuggets. So that shows you the impact that he has had. He's had the most 20-point games as a rookie in the last 20 years. So understanding what he brings to the table, Oklahoma City will be challenged. But I think because of the star power that Oklahoma City has, the reigning MVP in Russell Westbrook, who's on a mission to try to salvage his reputation in terms of being a leader and leading the team to a championship. He has something to prove. Paul George has something to prove. He has a lot of expectations in terms of free agency and going to Los Angeles, but he wants to show that he can contribute to a winning situation beyond just what he gave in Indiana. And Carmelo Anthony, who's in year 15, who has scored every bucket possible, who has achieved Olympic success, college champion with the Syracuse Orangemen, just having all of this success all around outside of winning the NBA championship, Carmelo wants to try to win, and he understood that. That's why he's sacrificing and is willing to be the third option on the team with such star power. Oklahoma City does struggle in execution down the stretch. Utah is one of the best defensive teams in the league. So this should be a highly contested, close matchup. I think the edge goes to Oklahoma City because of the star power. But with that said, I think it'll be a tough 6-game series. We'll see how it winds up as the series unfolds. The last matchup tonight, you have the Houston Rockets versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves had to play a play-in game against the Denver Nuggets to get to their first playoff appearance since 2004, and then the longest drought in the NBA in terms of playoff appearances. With that said, they're facing an offensive juggernaut, the likes of which we haven't seen ever. The three-point shooting that Houston brings to the table is unmatched. Mike D'Antoni and his offensive system only lended itself to what James Harden brings to the table as an offensive player. He was able to put pieces around James with Eric Gordon, Ryan Anderson, Luke Baumute, who's injured with a separated shoulder. We'll see how that turns out and if he's able to heal up going into future rounds. But with Chris Paul being there to really take pressure off of James Harden as a playmaker, it only opened James up in terms of his ISO offensive scoring, and James is still able to get 8.7 assists a game. So Houston is the prohibitive favorite in this series, but Minnesota, with the additions that they've made in the offseason, including Taj Gibson defensively, Jimmy Butler offensively, and as a playmaker, they will make it difficult. When I say difficult, it'll be a tough 5-game series, but Houston, in my opinion, will prevail because they're just so strong offensively. The reason why I say it'll be a tough 5 is because Tom Thibodeau, his defensive approach in the postseason lends itself to being able to maximize everything he has around him. In the regular season, the Houston Rockets completely dominated, winning every matchup by at least 9 points. With that said, because of the preparation in the playoffs between games, I think the adjustments that Tom Thibodeau will be able to make should make it difficult. But as I said, the offensive juggernaut that Houston has, just the ability to create 3-point opportunities and with the ISO ability of Chris Paul and James Harden, I think Minnesota doesn't stand a chance in terms of winning the series. It should be close, like I said, close 5, but Houston should win. But we have to see what Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins can bring to the table in their first postseason appearance. This is Ask Isaiah. 2018 NBA playoffs are here, and you will continuously get playoff previews and analysis from me throughout this entire playoff action. Isaiah Rhodes, Ask Isaiah. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter at Ask Isaiah. Follow me on Instagram at Ask Isaiah. Continue to view, leave comments, and give me any type of critiques you want to. Ask Isaiah, over and out.